my name is Cheyenne, as he said. We have 3 sections to this meeting for our guests. So to explain, we have our prepared speeches, our table topics, and also our evaluations. So we could go through the roles as well and explain them since we have guests. Excuse me. Gretchen, would you please explain what the all counter does?
The all counter will record the number of filler words used by each person during their speeches.
All right, thank you. And will the timer please explain their role?
There are 3 parts of the meeting that are timed. The first are the prepared speeches, and Maurice is giving both speeches. They have 2-minute ranges. His first speech is 6 to 8 minutes, so he'll have the green light at 6, the yellow light at 7, the red light at 8 minutes, and he has 30 seconds after that to complete his speech. His second speech is 5 to 7 minutes, so it'll be green at 5, yellow at 6, red at 7. The second portion that is timed are the table topics. Those are 1 to 2 minute responses. Green light at 1 minute, yellow light at 1:30, red light at 2 minutes. And then the evaluations are the third portion timed. Speech evaluators get 2 to 4 minutes. General evaluator gets 4 to 6 minutes.
Okay, thank you. And with the mention of table topics, would you please explain what those are for us?
Yes, table topics are sort of an off-the-cuff, less than 2-minute little speech with various topics given out. Sometimes beforehand, but not always. Sometimes you don't know what the topic will be. You'll have to address it as best you can in under 2 minutes.
Thank you. And do we have a separate grammarian tonight from
Yes,
all
we
count?
do.
Okay, would you like to explain that?
I have the bonus back just for a
Yes.
second. The word of the day is bogart.
Bogart.
Okay, bogart. Thank you for providing that. It is to take an unfair share of something, keep for yourself instead of sharing. That happens a lot around our house. I won't mention any names though. To bully or force. Let's see. A person who acts in a tough or aggressive way, a person who hogs or monopolizes something.
So it's a verb form now.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll move on to our speeches. Is that correct? Yes. So if I could welcome to the podium the first speaker, which is Maurice.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I'm pretty sure that all of us at one point or two of our lives growing up have played the bully or been bullied. The story for tonight is entitled Eddie and Jimmy. Eddie is a middle school student who came from a different town, moved in from a different town, and started his first day at school, a new school, where apparently or obviously has no friends and doesn't know anyone because he's the new student at the school. As far as his personality, Eddie was real introverted, real reserved, but he was a real studious person, real smart, but he was not really socially acute. He was not real good at being social. So during the first several weeks of him being at the school, he would eat lunch by himself at the lunch table, had a hard time communicating with others and didn't make many friends off the bat. And then Jimmy was a real popular student, and he was real popular across the school population. He got along with jocks, nerds, social elites. So everyone at the school got along with Jimmy, no matter what type of person you were. There is a third person whose name was Johnny. He was a jock, and he was a bogart, or a bully. And he would bogart his way into other people's things if he wanted to. And he, in particular, did not treat Eddie very nicely. One day, at lunch, Johnny would actually steal Eddie's lunch. And that made, of course, that made Eddie very sad, and Johnny would bully him so much that it brought Eddie to tears sometimes. As the days and weeks went by, during lunch, Jimmy saw Eddie at the lunch table by himself eating, and he decided to meet him and talk with him. And they met each other, exchanged information about themselves, and it seems that they hit it off pretty well, very well. But at this point, Jimmy and Eddie weren't real close yet. One day, there was an altercation between Eddie and Johnny, and Johnny gave him an ultimatum: give me this or else. You'll lose your teeth, or you get beat up bad. And it got so heated, Jimmy observed it, and he decided to intervene. And Johnny looked at Jimmy, what are you doing? Get out of the way. Before, Jimmy would not associate with Eddie that much, really until he met him, after he met him. But Jimmy stood up to Johnny and told him, leave him alone, just stop it. Johnny, get out of the way. That's what Johnny said, get out of the way, Jimmy. It got to the point where it got heated between Johnny and Jimmy. And Jimmy did what he could to, they almost got into a fight, but somehow Jimmy prevailed. And he probably lost a little bit of his reputation with some of the cliques, because some of the cliques in the school, they weren't real fascinated with Eddie, even though they didn't know him, but I guess from his looks or for whatever reason, these cliques weren't into Eddie. But as time went on through middle school, junior high school, college, Jimmy and Eddie became very good friends. So in summary, you go through school sometimes as the bully, sometimes as the bullied, but once we grow up, there is something special about everyone, and you could be friends with anyone. Mr. Toastmaster. Or Madam Toastmaster. Sorry. wobbly table, sorry.
Sugar packets. There we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Maurice. All right, I would like to introduce our second speaker. Haven't heard from him in a while. Mr. Maurice.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, I want to introduce everyone to the infrared thermometer. And it is a device where you take a temperature of something real cold or real hot without coming in contact with it. This is very useful, for example, in a real deep freezer where you can take the temperature of it without physically touching it. Or let's say you're in a foundry and there's a cauldron of molten metal. You could take the temperature of that molten metal with this infrared thermometer without physically coming in contact with it. This thermometer has many features, and I can't get into all of them, but I'll get into some of them, including a laser guide, which you can turn on and off. And some of the warnings and cautions of it, obviously, is don't point the laser into anyone's eyes. And you can't measure it through transparent surfaces, or else it'll just measure the temperature of that transparent surface. So you can't point it through glass to measure something behind the glass, the temperature of something behind the glass. Also, steam, dust, smoke, or other particles can interfere with the temperature reading. And some of the other cautions, and I'll advance the, and I don't know if you can see, it's kind of blurry. Some of the other cautions include keeping it away from magnetic fields or from arc welders, and don't leave it near objects with high temperature. Distance to spot size. The spot size of an object that you're measuring the temperature for gets larger as you move away from it, and the distance to spot size ratio is 12:1. So the farther away you are from the object, the bigger the spot size that you're measuring the temperature of. And that's another, that just demonstrates the distance to spot size. So you want to make sure that the target is larger than the unit spot size. Again, the smaller the target, the closer measure distance, the closer the distance. When accuracy is critical, make sure that the target is at least twice as large as the spot size. The operation is relatively simple. Once you put the batteries in, it turns on when you pull the trigger. And as you will see in a few minutes, it is shaped like a gun. I hope it's not mistaken for a gun when someone measures the temperature of it, but That's how it's made, and it has a digital screen on the back of it. So you pull the trigger, you aim at the object, and you can switch the temperature reading from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So you aim at the surface and pull the trigger, and then the temperature readout will come on the LCD screen. This shows a radiator, and you can scan, you can hold the trigger and scan to find the hot spot on the radiator. And this is just a picture of the LCD display. You have the temperature reading in Fahrenheit or Celsius. And then you have different other readouts, which I won't get into all of them. You have a low temperature alarm icon, you have a high temperature alarm icon, a laser on icon, battery power icon, and many other parts of the display. And then this is the back of the unit. We got the LCD screen here, and then you got the different buttons. And for example, and I'll show it to you when I show you the, well, I'll do that right now. Okay, of course you got the trigger. I'm not going to point it at anyone. I'm not even going to turn it on right now. And then right here, this red button, it will turn on or turn off the laser. Well, I'll turn it on here. See, you got the laser there, and that turns it off. The laser part is just a guide to the object that you're taking the temperature of. And then this button right here, well, let me, okay, that button also changes it from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And there's many other features. So I will demonstrate one more time, and I will, well, if the air conditioner was on, I would shoot that and get the temperature. But once again, you just aim it at the object that you're measuring, and that's 70.2 degrees Fahrenheit or 21.6 degrees Celsius. So this infrared thermometer, you can measure the temperature of very hot objects or very cold objects or hard to reach objects. So it's a very versatile tool, Madam Toastmaster.
Touch thermometers. I wish they had those back in the day, those little glass ones. You know what I'm talking about? Bad memories. So next part of our session will be our table topics, and I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Susan, who is our table topic master.
Fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, Sean, welcome.
Thank you.
It's good to be here tonight after being away for the holidays. Hope you all had a great holiday, Thanksgiving. Tonight we're going to be discussing various things about the holidays on our table topics. I will go ahead and read out the question because it is the holiday. This is your gift. I will ask for volunteers to come up and give a little short answer to the question, and they are very, very easy questions. So, first one. What are some of your Christmas traditions that you had as a child that you continued on into your adulthood? Okay.
Thank you, Sid.
All right.
So, I'm currently a bachelor, so I do nothing that my family did for Christmas, such as setting up a tree. I don't have a tree, unfortunately, but I am getting married next year in March, so I'm sure that'll change. I'll have a tree and have to buy decorations and lights and all that fun stuff. But a tradition that we did was we always got to open one Christmas present on New Year's Eve. But now I just buy myself stuff, and I really don't. But no, but we don't do as many presents and things like that now that my brother and I are older and things. So yeah, thinking about it, I really don't do many traditions that I used to do, but maybe I will make some new traditions with my new family that I'm going to start soon. So thank you.
Great. All right. All right. Here's the thing. At what age and under what circumstance did you learn Santa's real identity? What?
So I've been asked to tell how I found out Santa's true identity, which, spoiler alert, he's not real. So how I found out was, first let me say I was so big into Santa, Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, all of that. So how I found out that Santa was not real was one night, one Christmas Eve night, I don't remember how old I was. They were setting up everything. I got a Barbie Jeep for Christmas, and they were recording, putting everything under the tree and setting up the Barbie Jeep and all of that. So the next day, I'm tearing through the Christmas presents, and of course the parents give the lame stuff like the socks and the pajamas. I'm ready for Santa's gifts, and I open it, and then they bring out the Barbie Jeep, and they're like, oh, Santa hid this under the stairs so you wouldn't see it. So I'm so excited. I'm like, Santa, thank you. Later on during that day, I decided to turn on the TV because I love to watch Christmas movies. They had decided to review the film that they had made, and it was on the TV, and I sat there and watched them put all the presents under the tree. And I was very confused, and I don't know if they did that on purpose or not. They were like, oh no, you weren't supposed to turn on the TV. But that's how I found out that Santa Claus was not real. So thank you.
Good job. What a sad tale that was. Okay. All right, now, what is your most memorable Christmas? Good or bad? Okay, John?
Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters. My most memorable Christmas event was when I was probably 10 or 12 years old. At that time, I received a .22 rifle. Parents got me. Well, I was of the age where a wrapped present under the tree was fair game for shaking and twisting and squeezing and all that, trying to figure out what it was. Well, my brother, who is 6 or 7 years older than I am, my parents got him a gun case because he had a gun. John, will you wrap this for Jim? Sure, I'll wrap it. So I wrapped the gun case, put it behind the tree in the corner. Well, when I wasn't around, my parents unwrapped it and slipped my rifle inside of it, knowing that it would be safe for my squeezing and twisting because I'd wrapped it, you know. So that was the most memorable thing I can think of. My childhood Christmas time was that.
And to this day, he's still, and he's very good at figuring it out, so it's really kind of no fun. Have any surprises when we can. Let's see, all right. What does Christmas Eve look like for your family? Presents or no presents?
Fellow Toastmasters and esteemed guests, I was asked to talk about what a typical Christmas Eve looks like at my house, if it's full of presents or if it's not full of presents. And I can say with certainty, with much frequency, we have always some presents underneath the Christmas tree. Specifically because we go out of our way to set up a really nice Christmas tree, and we want to make sure that it has all the compliments that come with it. Ornaments, a nice Christmas tree mat, of course our pets who love to lounge underneath the Christmas tree and bathe in the beautiful lights that come with a Christmas tree. As well as, I always made, since I was little, I really loved trains growing up. And my parents were kind enough to give me an electronic Christmas tree train set that unfortunately later I sold for other toys, but I still kept another set of non-Christmas related train sets that is very near and dear to my heart, and so we assembled it every year underneath the Christmas tree. And it's not a complete and thorough Christmas Eve celebration without the presents that we always make an effort to include, no matter how big or how small or how many we have or how little we have. Mrs. Table Topics Master.
Okay, so you do open your gifts on Christmas Eve, not on Christmas Day.
No, on Christmas Day.
That was the question. Sorry about that. I guess I wasn't very specific about that. But thank you so much. And I really am glad that you like trains. That's very cool. So does John. He's always trying to buy trains for a grandchild or, our children. Anyway, the last one. Have you ever had an awkward holiday celebration because of political disagreements between family members? Did it resolve amicably? And it sounds like this might be a sore subject, having just had Thanksgiving. But talk about something else if you're uncomfortable with that. Any bad Christmases? Any bad table experiences?
If no one else wants to go,
Okay, we're good. Hanging out to dry here. Thank you.
Well, I've been asked about awkward Christmases due to disputes in family, but I can honestly say that I don't really recall anything like that on any holiday. But those were hilarious stories, and I had answers to all of those, but not as good as yours. My most memorable Christmas, or something that did happen that was bad at a Christmas, there was a good moment and then followed by bad, but I happened to get engaged shortly before Christmas. However, the following day I flew home, and I believe that I must have caught something on the plane sitting next to someone, and basically probably 24, 48 hours after getting engaged, and then in that time when you want to show off your ring to family that you're arriving to, I was quite ill and had to stay at home at my mother's at that point, and it took a couple days to recover from that in order to be able to show off my ring. But I think that she actually ended up taking my ring with her to show, because I could not. Following a good moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a funny way the story ended. I would not guess that a mother would take her daughter's newly acquired ring to show off. while the daughter's not attached to it. So, anyway, well, thank you so much for your participation in Table Topics, and I will turn it back over to Madam Toastmaster.
Yeah, you go.
That was a fun table topic session. So now at this point, I would like to turn the lectern over to the general evaluator, which is Diego.
Thanks, Shan. And now I will take this opportunity to turn the lectern back over front to face the proper orientation. Now we're going to go over the evaluation portion of our meeting. I will be the general evaluator that will be spearheading all the different sections of the evaluation portion of our meeting. Since the first speech was evaluated by Cody, I'm going to welcome him to the lectern to give his evaluation of Maurice's first speech.
Tonight I had the privilege to evaluate Maurice's speech. He is almost through this one. He's on his fourth one. So this is storytelling from the Advanced Communicator Manual. These are relics for new members because we don't do these anymore. But Maurice is trying to finish as many as he can. So I have a series of questions that I'll go through. What emotions did you experience as the speaker told the story? How did the speaker use descriptive words and phrases to evoke emotion? So during the description of Eddie, you could feel a sense of sympathy for him because he was alone, he didn't have a lot of friends, so that invoked a little bit of emotion. Describing, eating by yourself and things like that. So I'm sure there's a time in many of our lives where that's happened to us, where we were alone at some point and felt lonely. So I felt that would invoke some emotion in most people. How did the speaker use dialogue to invoke emotion? Describing the feelings of the characters, describe how Eddie was bullied and spent a lot of time by himself. Did the story contain basic elements of setting, characters, plot, conflict, and action? If not, which were missing? How did this affect the story? Maurice set us up in the beginning by describing the school, so that was our base setting. So most of the story happened at the school, and then a sub-setting of that was the lunchroom. So he did a good job at that. I could understand where the characters were at and where the interactions were going on. We had three characters, Eddie, Jimmy, and Johnny, each demonstrating some different personality characteristics, and Maurice went into those characteristics. So you could kind of envision from different movies and things what these characters might look like based on their character types. We also had some conflict with Eddie versus Johnny, Eddie getting bullied by Johnny, and then Johnny versus Jimmy towards the end. And then action as well, the near fight between Johnny and Jimmy. The third to last question, were the characters well developed? How did the speaker use description and dialogue to give them life? Like I said, Maurice went into some descriptive language on each character. Eddie, the introvert, Jimmy, the popular guy that got along well with everyone, and Johnny, the bogart bully character. How was the story developed? Was the point of the story clear? Yes, the story is clear to me. It gave a background setting, personality of each character, and it was a story to describe how different people can find a way to come together and become friends even though they might not have a lot of commonalities between each other over the length of some time. How did the speaker build a powerful climax? The story built up to a battle between Johnny and Jimmy, but I think you could have had a little bit more dialogue between the characters, kind of like what they were saying. Maybe even had one of them throw a punch or something, maybe just to make it that much more climactic with the action towards the end. But overall, it was a nice story, well prepared. You didn't use any notes and things like that. So thank you, Maurice, for that speech. I'll now welcome the general evaluator back up.
Thanks, Cody.
Thank you.
I promise this is not an effort on my part to bogart this section of the meeting, but I was serendipitously asked to be the second general evaluator of Maurice's second speech. And without further ado, I want to explain my evaluation of his second speech. So the goal of his speech today was the demonstration talk, which is about discussing and showcasing a particular activity, device, or process. And Maurice decided to talk about the infrared thermometer, which is a device that I'm sure many of us in this room are not very familiar with. And it was a good opportunity for us to learn more about this device and some good applications that it might be used in our daily lives and routines. I think a really strong point that I liked about Maurice's speech was at the end, he succinctly explained 3 major points about the device, specifically its application, how to properly store the device, and also explaining how the device worked. I also appreciated how, I think one area of improvement that I want to share with him is, I think he could have spoken a little bit more about how he uses it in his daily routine. And also specifically, I think it would have been very enlightening for all of us to learn why he chose to showcase this device specifically. I don't think he communicated or didn't dedicate a lot of time to explaining, I'm going to talk with you about this device because this is why I find it appealing, or this is why I picked this device out of multiple other devices that I could have spoken about. What I think a really good sign of Maurice's development as a public speaker is the fact that I for my part didn't notice any filler words or distracting mannerisms. And I think that because of that, it was really comfortable when he had moments of silence, in my opinion. So I think that's really a really true good sign of growth on Maurice's part, that he's not afraid to have silences in order to avoid filler words and distracting mannerisms. I think another area of improvement that I want to share was a specific portion that was highlighted in the text that was suggesting memorize the line you will say just before you display your object, as well as the line you will say afterward. This ensures your object will help make your point effectively. And I think that's an area of improvement for the future. And I think this is if you could boil down an important tip about this speech, that is probably one of the most important points I think that a good demonstrator should exercise, is memorizing just what you want to say before you showcase the device and then afterwards. Because if you don't memorize the line before you present the device, then I think your attention is focused on the device when really the attention should be focused on the people you're presenting it to. And so I want to wrap up by saying that I think Maurice did a really good job with this demonstrator speech. I think he did a good job of explaining this type of device that we don't see on a regular basis, and I'm looking forward to the next speech that he will give in this particular manual. With that, I conclude my evaluation of Maurice's second speech. Now I'm going to switch into the general evaluator role of our meeting. And before I give the assessment of my evaluation of the meeting as a whole, I want to give the opportunity for the roles of our membership to explain their reports on this particular meeting. So will the grammarian please share their assessment?
Okay, I didn't pick up on any odd or inappropriate uses of the English language. I did note that Maurice used the word of the day twice in his speech. Cody used it once in the evaluation of his first speech, and he used it again in the evaluation of his second speech. So that concludes my grammarian report.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Gretchen, can you give us your report?
Yes. Cheyenne, for Toastmaster, I did not observe any filler words. For the first speech, Maurice, I noticed one, you know. On the second speech, Maurice, there were maybe 5 ands. 1 and well, 1 and this is just, and a lot of those ands I noticed were after you were looking at the notes, and then that's when you would say it, that's when I was observing it. There may have been a so, you can watch the video and really, tell if it was a filler word or not. For table topics, Cody, I picked up one, but you know, and that was all. Cheyenne, I didn't pick up anything. John, I didn't have any filler words for you. Diego, there were two us, and during the evaluation, you used, I think, a couple times as a filler word, and you also said it several times throughout the speech, but I think that it would be considered filler words a couple of times, and one and so. That's it.
Thanks, Gretchen. Tom, will you share with us the timers report?
Okay, Maurice's first speech was scheduled for 6 to 8 minutes. He took 6 minutes and 40 seconds. His second speech of 5 to 7 minutes was 7 minutes and 49 seconds, so a little bit over. On table topics, nobody was a bogart with this. Cody was 56 seconds, John was 1 minute and 3 seconds, Cheyenne was 1 minute and 27 seconds, Diego 1 minute and 23 seconds, Gretchen 1 minute and 39 seconds, all well within time. The evaluations, Cody's evaluation was 3 minutes and 33 seconds, Diego was 3 minutes and 6 seconds, all within time.
Thanks, Tom. I think that covered all of the roles of our evaluation portion, and so I wanted to just give a bit of feedback on the meeting as a whole. I think we did a really good job about starting on time. We were able to sign a few agenda roles at the last minute, but that was really good. But I think what I really want to impress upon everyone today was, I just want to say everyone did a really good job using Easy Speak today, and everyone should be really proud of that fact. Usually that doesn't happen on a regular basis, and I think the fact that the majority of our meeting indicated if we were attending or not, I really think that made our meeting run way more smoothly. We were all on the same page of who's going to be doing what responsibility, and the like as well. So I think really going forward, this is going to be a good habit that we continue to exercise, and I think it was a really welcome surprise for me on my end to see many check marks and many X's indicating I'm going to be attending or I'm not going to be attending. So that's the final point I want to press upon everyone today. Good job on using Easy Speak for that reason. Now I'm going to turn it back over to the Madam Toastmaster.
And we have an educational overview.
All right, thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. No, I did not, but I can get up there.
Okay, without further ado, I'd like to welcome our president for our educational overview.
Great job, Sharon, your first Toastmaster role. You did a good job. So I do not have a formal educational overview unless anybody wants to do it, but I'll take this time. So Maurice gave us those statistics today, and they're not good. So is it anyone still not signed up on Pathways yet? John? Okay. Justin?
You were looking right at me.
I mean, y'all know how to do it, so just take it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little
I
bit.
guess of the 12 members on Toastmasters that were signed up, probably only 2.
Okay.
So our percentage is high.
I will
in
admit
this club.
it's a little bit of a hurdle to like get into it because it's not that intuitive, and if you don't have a lot of time to like sit there and click around, then you'll just so it took me a couple times before I actually went through it and read my first assignment speech and everything. But once you're in and you kind of figure out the tool, it's not too bad. I think it's a move in a positive direction for Toastmasters, and we're sort of good on dues, Justin.
We're in good shape. I think that everybody in this room is paid.
Okay.
And we'd seen a couple of people rotate out, which is not uncommon. But yeah, everyone that has been attending is current.
Okay. Right.
Can I-
Yeah.
I'd like to point out, the club has done extremely well in the check marks for the Distinguished Club program. The only thing we need to have, Diego's finished, he's got all 8 new members, which was the minimum requirement. But keep going, because we need as many as we can. The one last thing we have to get hurdled is going to be club officers attending TLI training. So if we have the makeup session here, like we did the last time,
Yes.
I think we can accomplish that very easily. That will only leave educational goals to be completed. We will have at least 5 check marks by that time. So when that's done, which is the minimum requirement for Distinguished Club, but the caveat is we have to have 19 active members by the end of June.
Yes.
And right now, I think we're sitting at 12.
Yes.
So we have ways to go. But I'm very proud, everybody's really doing really good.
Tom, in order to increase the likelihood that the TLI makeup session is hosted here, is there anything we can do? Do we send an email to?
Well,
You got the area director right
well,
there.
since I'm an area director, I could talk to, I mean, I'll just talk to the division director and make sure, you know,
Okay.
that there's nothing else going on in the division.
Okay.
I think it's best to have it here because this is probably the only club in in area 42 or 43 that
Yes.
has an evening meeting.
Yes.
No, there's one in Daphne. I can't remember the Eastern Shore.
Eastern Shore?
Eastern Shores.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they have
Yeah.
night meetings as well.
Okay.
But everybody else is daytime meetings, so it's
Yeah.
awfully hard
Yes.
for people who work to be able to attend another club's daytime.
Yes.
I think it's fair to have a makeup just because it's a little bit of a drive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Well, and makeup is always a part of it, so,
Yes.
but we just have to make sure we have at least 4 at the makeup.
Okay.
And it can be the same 4, we had 7 the last time. It can be the same people, it just has to be 4 officers.
Yes.
Yeah, do something similar to what we did
Oh,
for me, so.
Yes.
I think that's the only way we'll probably get everybody to show up. So it's tough when they have it on the weekends. Okay, with that, I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.